Ladies and gentlemen, welcome in. I'm Robbie.
I'm Jason.
And welcome to the table. Excited to have you guys here for episode, as we discussed before we hit the record button, 33. It's a good one. Jason, how you feeling today, sir?
Feeling good. Episode 33, Larry Legend, man. Probably my second favorite basketball player ever is Larry Legend. I'm a Michael Jordan guy all the way, of course. That was my era. I love Michael Jordan. He is the greatest. There's no argument. Larry's up there as well. So just thought about that with my Larry 33. The only basketball jersey, like NBA basketball jersey I've ever owned was a Boston Celtics. Now I own that also because of House of Pain. If you want to peel away a little bit, House of Pain. I was a big House of Pain rap group fan. For those who want to go in the Wayback Machine, jump around. That's the biggest one they know. It's the biggest one they're known for. So anyway, I'm doing good, man. How you doing?
Dude, doing swell. We are in full baby prep mode. It is Sci Guy, like for my job, for those of you listening and you maybe you're just here for the board game side, I do content creation. And so my editing is done through a guy who lives in Lynchburg. And he was like, hey, do you have Thursday's video? And I was like, hey, I just got the box in, so I'll get it to you. And I said, but don't worry, you got a content stream coming to you, because I uploaded 7 videos to him last night to edit, because I shot my 8th one and I'm shooting another one tomorrow, and I will have all my videos shot through the end of January, or through the beginning of January. Sorry, big difference. Through the beginning of January. And so we've got my wife hits 37 weeks tomorrow. So like we are truly in the any day it could happen type vibe. And so because of that, we are making sure that it's just like, oh, you have a free moment, let's get it done. So
for sure.
It's been good, but that also means she's chilling. So you got it.
She's at the good place, right? Well, the relative good place, like she's probably ready to be done being pregnant, because everything life is life, and you're like, okay, I'm tired of feeling this way all the time. But it's good to be on cruise control for the work effort, for sure. Relatively cruise control. It's funny, I didn't realize till this day we have a new employee at Foundation, a part timer who is due as well. They were due on Sunday, but I didn't realize this. I knew we had a new person whose wife was pregnant. And so I asked him today, I said, hey, are you coming to the Christmas party next Friday? He goes, well, maybe it depends on when my baby's due. I was like, is it due around the time? So it was due Sunday. I was like, dude, we're going to not mark you down for the Christmas party because it's next Friday. It's like, you're not coming to the Christmas party unless your wife kicks you out of the house because she's tired of your ugly face, you know? And so, but don't worry. His brand, like he's only been at Foundation a couple weeks, part-timer work, just splitting some time. He's got a couple jobs, but it was just funny that he's a young kid too. He's like, well, I really wanted to come. I'm like, dog, you got priorities when that baby comes. So.
Yeah. But I will say, we'll go ahead and pass this warning off for people in the beginning of the episode, is that obviously I jokingly told my wife, because December 12th is a Thursday. That should be our next episode. Should be dropping on the 12th. And I was like, babe, if we could just, plan this out, would be really convenient is if you could just plan on having him on December 12th. That way I go ahead and get the Bards episode recorded, get it up, get it out. And then we have 2 weeks. And then I can just be like, at a week and a half in, I feel like I can be like inside the house. Hey, Jason, let's record an episode. But in case Leo decides to come at an earlier time, Jason's going to have another co-host with him. So get excited for that. This may be the last episode you hear from me for an episode or two. So it'll be a good time, but wanted to pass that warning off. But Jason, what games have you been playing lately, man?
I have 2 new games actually hit the table. And I think it's maybe the only games I played because we were out of town. We played a bunch of games. Did we talk since we came back from Canada? I can't remember.
I can't remember. I had an episode since we got back from Canada. Yeah.
While we were in Canada, we played a ton of party games. I will say this because I texted Robbie about this. And we've talked about it. This is not one of the 2 games we played. That's Not a Hat. That's Not a Hat plays great at large player counts. Plays great the later in the night you are, because your memory's not that great and you forget. And literally you can see the look on their face. And they passed them the first card. We talked about when that's all I had. You're trying to memorize. They're like, I already forgot what it is. So it's just, we played a bunch in one night, stayed up till like 2 a.m. It's the first time all of Elizabeth's 4 siblings and their attached spouses and better halves and partners were in town together. So it was great. Fantastic time. Pivot up. So I played a bunch of games then, but they were all games I'd known before. 2 new games. One's called Fromage. It's about making cheese. Kickstarter Deluxe just came in like a week ago. It is. I mean this 100%. Like maybe a year down the road, once you can play it, it's one that could easily be on Bards because the gameplay is so easy. Easy's relative, bit better than cognitive load, but it's simultaneous action, and you're basically putting out a worker to get some resources or a worker to make some cheese. More details than that, but that's it. And then, but your worker is like a pie-shaped, like traditional pie-shaped piece that's pointed one of three ways. And after everybody takes their turn at the same time, you rotate the board. It just slides. There's no fancy lazy Susan. You just turn it on the thing. And if a worker is facing you, you get the worker back. But if it's not facing you, you don't get the worker back. And you only start with 3 workers. So you got to kind of think out, do I want to do this cheese that's going to take 3 turns to get back, but it gives me more points into the game? Or do I want to make a cheese that I get back on my next turn, but it's one less thing? 4 quadrants score in 4 entirely different ways. We played it once, Will and Hannah and me and Ryder, including the teach. It was less than an hour. It was more like 45 minutes, including the teach. And Will's still new to gaming, so he plays. He's definitely not AP, but Will plays a little slower sometimes, and Hannah can play that way when she's really thinking about stuff because there's so many things you're thinking about. And it was easily maybe 50 minutes, including the teach. Like it was like even I looked down, I was like, oh wow, that was way faster than I thought it was going to be. So Fromage, the cool one, is definitely top of the list. Sometime when you're able to make it in the new year, it is really cool, really fun. It's lightweight because you're placing it to get some resources or placing it to make some cheese, but your thought process in this unique way in which you get workers back, like you may go a whole turn without taking any actions. And Ryder did that once because he had his workers going where he couldn't get them back on his turn. Fromage, pretty cool game for sure. Just like it's not even in retail yet. The Kickstarter just got delivered. It's still actively getting delivered now. I have one for sale though. I bought 2, so if anybody wants to buy one, hit me up. Hey. You don't have to hit me up. The second one is one I bought a while back and returned, and I texted Robbie and I said, Robbie, you'll love this game. And Robbie literally went and bought it the very next day. And it's a big box store game. It's called Hitster, Hitster. Right now, like today as of recording and probably all Black Friday week when this comes out, the game's only $10 at Target, and that's where I got it. It's basically like there's a game called Timeline in which you're putting things within a year-based timeline, like ascending from 19 something something to 20 something something, right? So the basics of this game is you're going to get a card. Everybody's randomly dealt a card in front of them that has a year on the back. You flip it over. One year could be 1987, 2000, 2022. Then on your turn, you scan the back of this. You have a stack of cards. You scan the back of a card that has a QR code, and a song plays. And your goal for your turn is to hear that song and to see where it fits in your timeline. So if you have 1982 as a year and you hear, Can't Touch This from MC Hammer, you're pretty good in knowing it's going to be on the right side. But if you start getting like Counting Crows and Nirvana and Smashing Pumpkins and other people together, like I had a stretch, I was like, well, there's 92 and there's 93 and then I go up to 95 and then I go up to 98. It was very fun, very cool. If you like music, if you're a music person, this is absolutely a game you want to have because it goes from, we saw stuff from the 30s all the way to 2022. Like there was some of the stuff in 18, 19, 20. Like I don't even know who this is, but my kids know it because of Instagram reels and those kinds of things, right? People use those so that's how they knew a lot of these songs. Like they would know the song, but not necessarily the artist they would be familiar with the song and know it's a newer song. Another cool aspect of this game is after you scan the back, it stays face down. So what'll happen, you'll flip the card over and it'll have the year on it. So it stays face down. You can also, for a bonus, try to guess the artist and song. And if you do that, you get this little token that you can use later on in the game to like break the game. You can use it the one cool thing you can do it if someone else, so if you guess Counting Crows, Mr. Jones, when it's Mr. Jones, so you get this token. And later on someone else's turn, they slot their card somewhere before they flip it over, and you don't think it's right. You can be like, hey, I'm going to challenge that. They flip it over. If it's wrong, then you just get that and it goes directly in your timeline. So it's a way to you're not really stealing their point because they got it wrong anyway, but you're taking a point they didn't get. That was pretty cool. I loved it because I just had a stretch of songs that was just from my youth, but it made it hard because I literally had like 90, 92, 93, and 98. I'm like, and a lot of these songs came out, I'm like, I don't know. And Ryder had, well, I'll tell you a story real quick. Ryder had twice. He had songs. He had one of his years was 1958. He kept getting these songs. Like he got an Elvis song and another song. Like he literally guessed, okay, it's to the right of 1958. And both times those songs were 1957. So he got it wrong. It was just wild that twice he got stuff. I'm like, I don't know. Cause sometimes it's obvious. Sometimes it's not. At least as someone who loves, in general, loves music and listens to a wide variety of music for most of my life. So Hitster, I'm telling you, if you like music, quick, easy game. If you do not like music, do not play this game. You will hate it. If you don't listen to a lot of music and like a variety of music, you're going to hate it because you'll be like, I don't know what this song is. I don't know what this song is. And you may feel stupid because everybody else knows the song, right? Yeah. And there was one time like we gave a pass to Will because Will, it was Bye Bye Bye, but he could not remember NSYNC's name. But we know he knew the name. He just couldn't remember. I'm like, okay, we'll give that to you. He goes, I know it's not Backstreet Boys. I was like, we know you know. You're literally watching the video in your head. We'll give you a pass on that one because we all know. Because when they play the first few notes,
the dance, Will. Right. If you can do the dance, we'll give it to you. Or as the kids today call it, the Deadpool dance.
The Deadpool dance, exactly. That's how it came relative with the Hen and them, because for that very reason. So it's fun. It's so fun because like within the first few notes, you're like, oh, I know this song, or you're like, I have no clue what this is, and I was just because I'm a music snob a little bit. I'm like, do you know the name of that song? Okay, so I don't get a token, but I'm gonna guess the name of that artist and song, and I got so many of them right. Hitster is a great game. I know you said you went and bought it, right, Robbie? Have you gotten to play it yet? I assume not, because it was like 2 days ago.
Yeah, haven't gotten to play it yet. We've got family, so we like doctor's orders. We can't leave the state, so with all of our family lives in Georgia. So there's Lindsay's family's coming over on Black Friday to hang out for the day, and then my family may be coming over on Saturday. So I think we're gonna try to bust it out with them. So if I'm here for the next episode, I can almost guarantee you that will be one of the one of the games. My friends and I have been playing this game since my freshman year of college, where two friends were super cocky and were like, we can name more songs than anyone else. And we were like, oh, really? And they were like, yeah, we can name more songs than anyone in the whole world. And that's been the game ever since. Like, we don't have an actual count of the scoreboard, but when we are together, like, when either of those friends is hanging out with us, if there's music playing at a restaurant or whatever, we don't name the song, it's the artist. And so like you'll just always, it's so subconsciously in me because I've been doing this for 14 years, is like literally if you just watch me in a restaurant, I will just be like, as soon as the song changes, my ears just go like,
yep.
Okay, got it. That's really excited.
I can relate to that because if you haven't read Ready Player One, have you ever read Ready Player One? I don't know if you watched the movie, which is terrible and horrible.
I watched the movie, which was everyone.
Sorry for all those who love Ready Player One. The movie is the worst adaptation of a book I've ever seen in my life, hands down. A key part of the book is, as part of the quest, as part of the hunt, they have to memorize songs, right? And throughout the book, they talk about, and then name the song, the artist, the year it got released, and all that. So similar way. So, same vibes. Yeah. Same vibes.
I love it. Well, we played 2 games. We did get to Res Arcana again, which I talked about last week. So I'll just highlight this time. It was fun because I'll talk about the replayability side of it, because like there's just so many cards available for it to come out that it felt like an entirely new game, which was so cool. Like, I actually think we ended up with, because we only played a 2-player game, so I think we legitimately saw one card like from the set that we played, Jason. So like, so fun. It plays so different the whole time. So I could very much, we checked it out from the library, and I can see a world that it is. I mean, I already put it on the Christmas list for my in-laws, and was like, hey, if you're going to give me something, please give me this game. And I see it becoming a game that we end up playing a lot with folks, as just it's a nice middleweight game. Yeah. Don't think it, I'm going to be shocked if we don't do an episode on it. And I think we said that when we talked about it, like later on down the road for sure, but super, super fun. Very much enjoyed it. The other game we played is one that Jason sent. He talked about one of them last week, which was Western Legends. Is that the one you talked about, or did you do Circle the Wagons last week?
Western Legends, something was the one I talked about last week. 18 card game. Yeah. Yeah.
So we played Skulls of Seldik, which is also a 18 card game. And Jason talked about Fromage, 50 minutes, teaching everything. Skulls of Seldik, teaching everything, not including a rules debacle. Rules and everything, 10 minutes.
Yep.
It was so simple, so straightforward. In Skulls of Seldic, it seems like a billion expansions to this, but there are 18 cards in a base game, and these cards have 2 pictures on it that are stacked on top of each other. And they're skulls, because it's the Skulls of Seldic. And in the base game, there's 5 different types of skulls. You have peasants, royals, priests, criminals, and romantics. And so you're playing these cards, and it's a 2-player game. I think you can play with more. But you're building this basically stack of cards, and this pile, you're building a pyramid. 4 cards on the bottom row, 3 on the middle, and 2 on top. And as you build this pile, you set the whole deck out in 6 unique piles, and you turn 2 of the cards over on the top. So on your turn, you can take an action. You can either dig, which is flipping the top card of a stack over. You can collect, which is taking a card to your hand, or you can place. You can only have 2 cards in your hand. And so if you have 2 cards in your hand, you cannot dig or collect. You have to place. So you end up in this like back and forth of turning cards over, but you realize if I dig and flip a card over and it's a good card, my opponent, if they have open space in their hand, can just take. So there's this back and forth of like watching what your opponent's doing and playing off of that, but also going real point salady. And I'm just trying to build this tableau that is the most points, because when you build it, these cards are double stacked. So you're essentially going to end up with 6 layers in your pyramid, and you get points based on things in those layers. And so certain cards do better at higher layer points. But if you're digging early on and you're getting all those cards, unfortunately, you just kind of have to sack that and take those points where you can get them. So really, really cool. I ended up texting Jason afterwards, because we ended up in this whole debate in our house over the word adjacent. But it worked out. It worked out. I think my lovely wife was just a little salty because she got absolutely destroyed in our first game, which we talked about this a little bit before. Like, we even just mentioned it with Will. There's just a world when you're getting into the hobby gaming space, for your ability as a gamer to pick something up, play it for the first time, and succeed at it. That's just a skill that even there are people who are gamers and they're just not gifted at that. Like, they have to play a game at least once, if not multiple times, to sort of see the vibe and the strategy of it. Our friend Ryan is one of those. I would say Ryan is a good gamer. I don't know that Ryan's going to basically win any game he plays for the first time. His wife is the exact opposite. She can just lock onto a strategy really, really fast, and Abby does a great job with it. But Ryan wins so many games on the second play. Like, I've watched him do it multiple times, and so it's like, oh, okay. It's just, and Lindsay and Ryan are cut from the same cloth in that. Like, Lindsay very rarely is going to win the first game she ever plays. But like, at this point, Smash Up, it's very much a toss up, because we played that game so many times against each other. She's going to be pretty dialed in. So it's definitely a unique skill, I feel like. And Jason, you play with a lot more people than I have in the hobby gaming world. Do you see that like quite often in your gamers versus not gamers?
Yeah, for sure. Like, even for me, I don't think, even with you playing with us, right? And I don't mean that in a bad way. Like, you're happy when you get to play, when you actually beat us for the first time when you play a game, because you just haven't grokked it yet. And so it depends on if you just conceptualize it really quick, because sometimes a deck builder, okay, not that hard, but if it's a new game that has this unique things that you haven't seen before, it takes you a while to get it. And then like halfway through, oh, now I get what I'm actually doing here. So the next time we play, so I can agree with that for sure. And then, because I played with people who aren't hardcore gamers, but just kind of go through it, and they pull out the win. They're like, well, I don't know how I won, but I just won. I'm like, because that's just the way the game goes sometimes, especially in like quacks or something that has a little more push your luck or some luck. And I don't mean they didn't just win because of luck, but the little bit of aspect comes into play, that's what makes quack such a great game, because hardcore non-gamers can easily beat hardcore gamers just by playing the game like normal.
Yeah. Totally. So, but we do have a game today that is, it's tough to put in the, this is a game that you want to talk about, a game that someone could just win, like their first go through. I feel like Calico could be that game. Like, I could see a world, because it's just how the game goes. Like, you're pulling your tiles, it just works for you. And then I could see it a world where you're like, I've played Calico 40 times and I've never won this game. So fascinating. Jason, you want to tell us a little bit about Calico?
Yep, absolutely. Excuse me. Sorry, Ryder's letting the dogs out right now for my token go out. They've been wanting to go out. I apologize for breaking the fourth wall there so you guys can know we actually have a life going on back here. Excuse me. What you said was true, by the way, is that you could play a ton and never win, or you could play it the first time and win it. So don't let that scare you away. The game's fantastic. Here we go. Released in 2020, designed by Kevin Russ, who I went to go look, hasn't designed any other major things that we know about, but a couple that I've seen. Published by Flat Out Games, which also published Cascadia, and published another game called Verdant, which is we've never played that with Robbie, but same designer as Calico. It's about growing plants in your house. 1 to 4 players, plays in about 30 to 45 minutes. Currently 250 on the BGG top 100, but that doesn't mean anything bad when there's over 100,000 games on BGG. If you're in the top 100 or top 1,000, that means you're literally still in the top 1%, right? Calico is a puzzly tile-laying game of quilts and cats. In Calico, players compete to sew the coziest quilt as they collect and place patches of different colors and patterns on their board. Each quilt has a particular pattern that must be followed, and players are also trying to create color and pattern combinations that are not only aesthetically pleasing, but also able to attract these cuddly little cats that you'll see. Turns are simple. You select a single patch tile from your hand and sew it, quote unquote, sew it into your quilt by placing on your board. Then you select another patch. Then you draft another patch from the table into your hand from 3 that are available. If you're able to create a color group of three of the same color of patches together, you can sew, again, quote unquote, sew a button onto your quilt, which means you get a button, a token that goes onto there of that color. If you're able to create a pattern combination that's attractive to any of the cats, the thematics of it, that cat will come over and curl up on your quilt. Essentially, there's a pattern that different patterns you're trying to do for the game, and you get a cat token that comes over there. At the end of the game, you score points for buttons, cats, as well as how you're able to complete your unique quilt pattern. Probably sound kind of convoluted because it didn't really say much other than you grab a tile and place a tile, but we'll go in a little deeper from there.
Yeah. So, contextually, I feel like it's important to explain before like diving into the game, my interaction with this game, because this will shadow my whole discussion of it. So the first trip that I ever made when I had joined with Foundation, I went up to visit Jason. This is the first game that I ever played at Jason's house. So there is a nostalgic or special feeling for me for this game, regarding it is truly the first game that I ever played with Jason at his house. But that was 2 years ago. So I watched multiple plays of this game, and multiple like how to plays to remind myself. And I'll tell you, I had forgotten about the cat patterns. I remember the buttons, but I forgot about the cat patterns. And I was like, oh yeah, I do remember this now. Okay, cool. So, set up this game is, if you are a Cascadia fan, I think that this game is going to be really, really fun for you. Just prefacing that on the top side. Setup super easy, because you all get a player board the player boards are unique, which I think is actually really cool as well. And we'll talk about that in a second, but, there's not a ton that comes to like the true setup of it, would you say?
Yep. You give out the boards. You will start off with 2 tokens in your hand. The only thing that it's not, I put in our notes challenging. It's not even challenging. The only thing that takes a little bit of time is that in the game, you're going to have 3 scoring goals on your board. It's really selecting those scoring goals is what takes a little bit of time, but it's really not hard. It's really just finding them in the thing is what takes more time, is because there's 4 players and I think there's 6 or 8 total scoring goals. So there's like 30 tokens and you're trying to pull 3 for each color because they're also color coded. That doesn't really clarify, but that's how easy it is. You have a bag of tiles that always just stay a bag of tiles. It's unlike Cascadia, you don't have to put out a certain number. They're just all in the bag. And then you got to randomly choose what your pattern tiles are, which is for cat scoring. But like we're talking 10 minutes maybe to set the game up. And then the principle of the teach is even wildly easier. I've already said it and I'll say it probably way too much in this game. The entire game is playing a tile and taking a tile. and there are no restrictions for where you play your tile. Like Cascadia has no restrictions for where you play. You can play anywhere. There's no, like like we can with Carcassonne or other games, there's like, okay, I can't place it here because the borders don't match. It doesn't matter. On your board, you can place your tile wherever you want within your dual layer board. However, the scoring goals, explaining the scoring goals is what takes a little bit of time, because you score for buttons, which is your color patterns. You score for the cats, which is pretty black and white. But each of your scoring goals has a single goal on there or two goals. They're called design goals technically, so I'll use the right term. Explaining the design goals of your quilt is what takes a little bit more time, because it's hard to conceptualize. Okay, around this one, you want 3 of the same color and 3 of the same pattern, or at least just 3 of the same color. And there's so many different ones. Some are like 4 of one color, 2 of a color, or 3 of one color, 2 of another one. And if you color and pattern, you get more points, but you get just color. So for example, there's a few in there, but I'll go here. One of the goals is get 3 of one thing, 2 of one, and 1 of another. So because those scoring tiles, those design tiles have 6 spots around it. So your goal is to either get 3 of a single color, 2 of a single color, and 1 of a color, or 3 of a single pattern, 2 of a pattern, and 1 of a pattern. There are 6 patterns and 6 colors. So if you get either one of those, you get the lower of the goal. So maybe the goal is 11 points, is 7 points if you get all colors or all patterns. But if you're able to do both, get 3 different colors, 2 different colors, 1 different color, and 3 different patterns, 2 different patterns, and 1 different pattern, you now get more points. Even in saying that out loud, it's hard to understand until we could show you, right? Conceptualizing what that looks like on your board just doesn't make any sense in your head until we would show it to you on the board. So trying to explain that to folks at the beginning of the game, they won't get it all at the beginning, but as the game will continue to remind them as they're taking their tiles.
Yeah, it's definitely one of those. There are certain games when you're teaching that I've always found it's easiest when you have the pieces with you and you can literally just showcase the pieces. Like when I'm teaching certain games, I'll have, let's say there are cards that do things. I'll pull those cards out and I will set them out aside. And it's like, all right, here's a draw card. This is what it looks like. Here is this card. Here's what it looks like. Like when I teach Smash Up that we talked about here on the podcast before, I'll take one of the factions that we're not using, and I will show this is what an action card looks like from this, and this is what a special action looks like, and things like that. So I can show the cards. Jason nailed it. Like the scoring goals, you set it out, and the scoring goal will look like A, B, C, D.
I got one now. I just remembered I had the game literally sitting here. So you can see that's one I just used as an example.
Yeah, triple A, double B, and a C. So you can have 3 of a color, 2 of another color, and 1 of a third color, or 3 of a pattern, 2 of another pattern, 1 of another. And if you achieve them both, that's where the real thinkiness of this game shines. And we'll talk about that a lot in the gameplay, is you can very easily just throw a bunch of tiles onto your quilt and just take what you get. The gamers are going to freeze on this a good bit because there's not a ton of dead space on your board. The dead space on your board, you're supposed to be using most likely to attract buttons and the cats to fill it in. And then you get your scoring goals, because your scoring goals, those tiles are very centrally located on the board. So it just gets real spicy as you're going to do this. Theming wise, Jason, how do you feel about the theme as the not theme guy?
So I don't go into a game looking for the theme, but the theme, if you're looking for a theme in this, to me, this hits the nail on the head, right? Because you are making a quilt. Now the game's called Calico because there's a calico cat on the cover of the thing, right? That's why it's called Calico, because you're making you're making quilts to attract cats. The real answer is you're making a quilt. So it's an interesting, I wonder if they had a different name at one point. Probably could find the research of that. But you are placing tiles out onto your board that are basically patches of a quilt, right? So I'll show, there's one pattern and a color and a different pattern and a color for our YouTube watchers. So thematically, it makes sense because I'm putting a patch down. I'm putting another patch down. If you have a certain pattern in there, that's the goal for that game, the cat really is attracted to it and will come lay on your board the rest of the game with a little token you put on there. The buttons, you're putting buttons on there, so it's fun to put buttons on there, but it's not like a pasted on theme. It probably could be different themes, but this isn't a like whatever theme. If you embrace the, hey, I'm making a quilt, I could totally see that.
Yeah. I think where I get wacky with it is you nailed it. Like, it's called Calico, so you would think cats are a lot more involved in this process. And the cats are like, I would say realistically, you probably can't win if you haven't attracted any cats to your quilt. But like, there's a very realistic chance that like the winner has 2 cats on their quilt.
Yep.
And a bunch of buttons and all the tiles, obviously, because the game ends when everybody's plays tiles. So it's not, because there's no restrictions, it's also not going to be this thing where like, oh, we end the game and like I had 2 empty spots, Jason had a full board, and Elizabeth had 1. Like, everybody gets to play all of their tiles. They may not be tiles you want. They may not be tiles that work for you to get points, but you're going to finish your quilt, which I do appreciate from a gameplay standpoint. That like New York Zoo is a great example of a game where like I could just have bad turns where I'm not getting to place enough pieces. So like I finish and I have so many empty spaces compared to someone else who has been able to work more efficiently. So it balances in that way. But yeah, I think that the cats, it is definitely a quilting game. I like that. It's colorful. It's very pretty. I like that aspect of it. And I can understand the whole attraction to cats. I'm not a cat guy. So like part of me thinks, do I not connect with this thing because I just don't like cats?
Right.
I like quilts. We have quilts in our house. That's fun. But,
I
did. Yeah.
Go ahead.
I passed this along to a friend that is a cat guy and his wife knits.
Yeah.
And so when we played, I was like, hey, have you ever seen Calico? And he was like, no. And I said, dude, I think this is right up your alley. And it's a classic in their home because they are these people. Like this game was inspired by them.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Like, and probably, I mean, the name Calico is a cool name. And it looks like it's talking about design. Like when I look at Calico, the word is a cool name. I don't actually think about cats, even though that's what Calico is. That probably has more meanings than that. You look at the cover of the thing, it's like, oh, it's a cute little cat laying on there. But then so that's a little misleading. But when you get into it knowing you're a knitter or you're a quilter, absolutely. I think it definitely was in there. You could easily just ignore the theme altogether and just put patterns and colors together. But if you want to embrace the theme, it's easy to do.
Yeah, dude. Absolutely. So let's talk gameplay. I'm looking at the show notes, and you've played a lot more games of this, Jason. So from my remembrance of this took a while, but I also think that once again, contextually, I was trying to like be really thinky on this. It was my first game, I felt the pressure. I gotta show that I'm a good gamer here, in front of Jason and Elizabeth and not embarrass myself. So I probably had more AP on this game than I may have had in pretty much any other game that I've played at y'all's house.
Yeah, I would agree with that. It's funny you say that because I was having that same thought because I remember the game, but you also had driven all day that day, and I think you'd already gone to have dinner with like the overthrow guys. So it was like 9:30 or 10 o'clock at night. We're playing this game. It was like, oh, let's just throw Robbie the crunchiest game we can play all week, and let's do it when he's been awake for like 15 hours straight with no break. Let's do it. And so I think it was like you had AP because you were also late and tired, and your mind probably wasn't quite working the right way there. So,
yeah, definitely made some bad first impressions on the gaming table, but I think I've redeemed myself since. Sure. But yeah, so how does it feel, Jason, when you played this game with? Because I'm sure you played a lot of 2-player versions, but also probably with a full board as well.
Yep. Well, yeah, I have 12 plays in BG stats, but probably more plays than that. I've won 7 of those, by the way. So Calico is one of my games, apparently. I won 6 in a row at one point. It's just one of my games that I get. But, Elizabeth won the last time we played for Fantastic February. So there you go. I think it's accurate. I think the 30 to 45 minutes is correct. Like you could play a 2-player game from once you start playing when you know it easily in less than 30 minutes because you know what early you got to kind of decide what path you're going to take with patterns and colors. But halfway through the game, there's no more thoughts. I want to say that for folks who've played the game a lot, you're like, I need a purple with this squiggly line or the dotted blue. Okay. Well, I got to pivot now. I'm going to go with blues, but I'm going to ignore the patterns and just go for colors for this particular goal. So I think the first few plays are a little like it's a little quick because your board's wide open. It slows down a little bit, even for me and Elizabeth, because you're trying to, okay, I got to go one way or the other. And then now once you've set your plan, you can only go with the tiles that are out there, which I like restrictions within that. You have agency within choosing a tile, but then you have a restriction of those are the only ones that are even available. So there's a little bit of luck based in that, but I think the gameplay is quite accurate. If you have some people who struggle with AP, not long day, late night AP like Robbie, but normal AP, the game's going to be longer because we'll say it now, this is not a social game. You're not really, when you play Calico, you're not hanging out, smoking and joking and talking, right? Because if you do, you'll forget what you're doing. So you're pretty much heads down. And you're talking about the game more than anything else. You're talking. It's not like it's totally quiet, but you're talking about the game. But that didn't come out. Oh yeah, no, I really want that. Okay, I'm looking for because you always have 2 tiles in your hand, so you always have a choice of 1 or 2 tiles to play from your hand. And then after you play that one, you'll choose one that are 3 up. The ones in your hand are private to everybody else. 3 face up on the board, you'll take one of those. So you have some levels of agency with that. But if you play with folks who play slower because they're thinking through, well, I could go for that purple one and go here, or I could go with my blue one. Ideally, because you're also thinking about, I'm going to play this and then draw a tile. So you're literally you're playing 2 moves at a time. Every time you play a tile, you're actually mentally playing 2 tiles at a time because you're like, I'm going to play this one now, knowing if I do that, well, that one's going to help build on this, or this one lets me do that. So when you're playing it, to play for the deeper strategy, it can go with an AP prone player. It can definitely go longer, not more than an hour. Even in a 4-player game, they'd have to playing multiple people going really slow once you know it. But if you really know it, it's easy. Like 2-player game, Liz and I can knock this thing out in a little over 20 minutes without doubt in a 2-player game because we know it so well.
Yeah, I think, and I know we talked about it in Wingspan, but there was another game I think that we talked about where it was like, you get less AP the more the game goes on,
right?
Because of the fact that you are restricted, and I was describing this to a friend this morning, and I said, "Oh, we're talking about Calico tonight or this afternoon," and they were asking like, "What's it all about?" And I was like, "It's one of those games that it's tough because on your first turn you have this wide open board, you have 2 in your hand, and you're like." All right, cool. I'm just going to chuck this pink one down right here. That sounds great. And then you get to like the 3rd or 4th turn from the end, and you're like, oh, that pink one actually destroyed everything that I was trying to do. And so, especially if you aren't well-versed in the game, it probably makes those first few turns, because there is no switching around. The board is not huge. So like I said, there's not a lot of dead space. Every decision matters. Your decision to place at the very end is just as important as your decision at the front. You just get towards the end and you're like, oh, I can't actually go attract this cat. So therefore, like, I just need to take a tile. And then you can, there's a lot less variance on the other side. So very much to Wingspan, where the turns take longer at the end. But if I've got an engine going, I'm not making a lot of decisions at the end of Wingspan because I'm just like running that engine over and over again to make that happen. Whereas the beginning, it's like, that bird could help me. Don't want to draw cards. Don't want to go your resources, like all this.
Yep.
So it definitely speeds up. I would agree with that. The 3 ways to score, very unique, because I don't inherently believe any of them are crazy. The design goals are probably the highest point variance, but also the hardest to really maximize because of the no dead space on the board.
Right. I totally agree. And a very cool thing, excuse me, a cool thing about that design goal, and we kind of touched on it, is that every design goal basically has 2 different goals to go after. And if you're able to do both of those together, you get more points. Like the one I held up originally, if you're able to match colors and patterns, you actually get a higher level of points. So you may start, I think we all try to start off on that path, and now we're just trying to hang on to patterns or colors. And it's definitely the bigger points, but I was looking back through some of our games where somebody has won big. it's because of design goals, because they were able to hit a couple of big ones. Like Elizabeth, our last game, she smoked me on design goals, but we were even on everything else. And then when we played with you, it was very similar. Oh, I don't have it in there. That design goals are where the more points are at, but it's not necessarily a ton or more points, because what I like about this game, and I have it in our notes, is you can't ignore one of those scoring goals. You said earlier with the cats, like if you ignore one, I just can't see you winning anything. Like if you unless you luck into a couple of buttons, but you don't have to go deep on buttons and cats. You just can't ignore it, because the buttons are all 3 points for every button. There's 6 different colors. So if you get all 6, you get 1 additional bonus button. And every time you have a pattern of 3 colors or a collection of 3 of the tile colors, you get a button. So you can get more than 1 pink button or more than 1 blue button. So every button is 6 points. So by default, if you ever get all 6 colors, well, there's already 21 points right there. And some of our games are like in the 50s or 60s. So that's like a third of your points just from buttons. Cats range from 3 to 9 points based on the pattern. So if you get 2 or 3 or 3 or 4 cats, I mean, that's 16 to 20 points. Again, a third of a 60-point game. So if you ignore one of those and only go after 1 or 2 cats, I just can't see you winning. I just don't see it at all. By default, I think in the nature of your play, you're going to do buttons, so you won't really ignore buttons either. The diversity of those things, and the variety of those is definitely fun. And because some games Fromage is that example. Even in the gameplay or the game reviewers I watched on Fromage, they said some of the because there's multiple scoring goals, you can totally ignore some goals on Fromage, because the way the game board spins, you just maybe can't hit that section really well, and so you can just totally ignore sections. Mostly ignore sections and don't worry about it all and still do well. Hannah had 0 points in one of the 4 quadrants, but then had like the highest points in another quadrant, and so that's how she won. There's fun in games like that, because if I can just totally ignore one whole thing. Wingspan can be that way if you've got an engine going a certain way, a tuck game, a egg game, a caching food game, or just a bird game and bonus card games, right? You can ignore other stuff. So there's some fun and agency in that. But that's what makes Calico so crunchy, in that you don't have to go deep in all of them, but you got to be aware of all of them as well. Because if you ignore it, there's no way you're going to win.
Yeah. Yeah. And I love the way that you described, like, you can go big in design goals, but it's not like it's going to blow things out of the water. Like, for instance, a lot of them, I feel like it's like, if you get the base scoring goal, it's 10 points. And then if you get the big scoring goal where you happen to go crazy and you got it in colors and patterns, it's 15 points. So yeah, that's 50% more, but right. Like that 5 points, probably, I mean, that 5 points is 2 buttons. So if I got 2 more buttons than you, yeah, congratulations that you hyper focused on getting those 6 tiles laid out correctly. I still beat you. Yeah. So that's really cool. Another aspect that I really like is the fact, so that when you get your player board, on the entire outside of the player board, there's a bunch of hexagonal spots in the middle for all these tiles to fit in your quilt. But on the edge are all these different colors and patterns, which is so cool, because they're just built in basically as those also count for buttons, and they count for cat attraction, things like that. And those are different for every single board. So it's not like any of them have this extreme advantage where you're like, Jason has like this mark on the bottom and he's like, oh yeah, I got to go for that starting board. Like, it really doesn't matter. It's balanced in that way, but they're all different as well. So that I think that it's a really cool balancing feature, so that you're not going into it like, oh, well, I just noticed on the starting board that there's a lot more blue. Yeah. Cool. So blue is going to be a higher priority. No, it's very balanced. And I think that's a really cool aspect, and something when I played the first time, I remember being like, I mean, I literally think it was like 2 turns in, and Jason and Elizabeth both already had a button. And I was like, huh? Like, how did this happen? And y'all both just like immediately built off of the edge to be like, hey, here we go. Whereas I locked into, like, I remember playing and being like, I'm going to get these scoring goals knocked out, these design goals knocked out, like right off the bat, and then just kind of fill in everything else. And then I got to the end and was like, oh, and I can't actually do like half these design goals. So trash.
Yep. It's which happens. It happens to all of us for sure, and it's frustrating. It's funny when you talk about the board. That is such a cool thing about Calico that I didn't even put on here because I didn't think about it. But the fact that every board is different now, because by default I will always go with the blue one, because I play blue, but it really means nothing. If I would really want to change it up, I would change up the board every time, or we'd make each other do different boards so we don't have the same one. But in the end, it doesn't matter. It gives you the replayability and the variety, but it doesn't matter because you still rely on the tiles that come out. So that while they're all different, you're all playing a different game. So you're playing a relatively different board, so that where your colors are in relation to those scoring goals, if they were all the same, well, we're all fighting for the same 3 tokens every time. But as you said, because the colors and patterns are different on the outside, what's appealing to me may not be appealing to you. And so it gives me a little more freedom, or a little more hope that you're not going to take the tile I'm going for because my yellow is here, but your blue is in that spot. So you really want blue to get close to that one, where I'm trying to get yellow. So I've never really that level of depth I haven't thought about, but is definitely helps with that. Helps with the replayability, spinning over into replayability along those same lines. This replayability, that's one of the many this game, one of the main reasons it has high replayability is because of those. The boards, because you could use different boards every time. Or use the same board, but tiles come out in different ways. There's 6 different scoring goals, and so you're going to have 3 different ones every single time. The tiles come out. I don't know how many tiles there are. I think there's a certain number of colors and patterns for every single one. They're going to come out randomly every single time. So to me, the replayability is just crazy high, because you could play 20 or 30 games and never come close to having the same game twice, because of how the tiles come out, because of how the scoring goals come out, because of how you do your colors, because of how you do your patterns, because even all the cats, there are 3 or 4. I think there's 4 cat goals. There's actually 8 cat goals. There's 4 cat scoring goal things, but you flip them over and there's different patterns on each side. When we talk about the scoring goals, I'll go a little deeper on that. So the cat goals, they're variety every time, but they're randomized every time, and there'll be 3 for every game, but it's based on a pattern. So for example, the cat for this particular game, 3 of the goals would be to have, one of the goals would be to have 3 in a row side by side. It has to be the same pattern, and it's one of 2 patterns, because it's another cool thing. Like, so the goals for the cats are black and white tokens. So for example, to this one would be every time you get 4 of the same pattern in a row, you get this cat and put it on your board, and at the end of the game, you're going to get 7 points. And the patterns are just black and white versions of the game. So every game, you're going to randomly put these out. So in this game, this palm tree leaf may be for this one, but the next one, it may be for a different one. Going to the idea that the variety of the game is there. And so there's 4 of these. There's 8 different goals. This is just 5 of one pattern or 5 of one color. It doesn't matter. And that's going to be 7 points at the end of the game. Another thing that just lines up to the variety of the game, or the replayability. That variety adds to the replayability of the game.
Yeah, and I think that's it's not been since a game like Quacks that the flip over capability of the scoring and the replayability really shines, because I think that's where, when you look at Quacks, there's all the spell books that count for all the different pieces and tokens and things, where it's like there's 8 or 9. I think there's 8 of each color option in Quacks. And so you can just have so much variability on it. And I look at this being the same way of, okay, well, what if we made it so we want to go for a high scoring game? So on our 3-point pattern, or our 3-point cat, it's going to be, we're going like straight line. But then when we get to the bigger cat, it's just a cluster of 5 pattern. That sounds like a win. So it's really, really unique. And talking about the theming, I didn't realize cats are colorblind, which is why those tiles are black.
I didn't know that either.
Yeah,
that makes sense. I didn't even more that level of the thematics on there.
Yeah. So that way, because it attracts you, because the cats are not attracted to the colors, so they're attracted to the patterns, and that's where you score the patterns. The patterns get you the cats, and then the colors get you the buttons, because the colors are all clustered together. So it's that replayability is super high. I also think another fun part of the replayability, and this was something that I remember, I remember asking this question 3/4 of the way through the game and thinking about in Carcassonne, when you play it, it's a tile puller. in the same essence that Cascadia is and Calico is, that there's a bag of tiles and you're pulling them out every time. Here we go. But as those get played out in Carcassonne, you're going to pull all of the tiles out. Like it's like all the tiles are present in front, so you're using all of them.
Right.
And it's like, I can know, okay, I have an idea of what tiles are left. In Calico, you will not see all of the tiles.
Right.
Which is really fun because the super crunchy person wants perfect information. They want to know, okay, I'm looking for pink squiggly lines, or I'm looking for pink palm tree. There are 3 pink palm trees. Jason has one on his board. Elizabeth has one on his board. So I'm just looking for that last pink palm tree to come out. You can't do that because you may never see that 3rd pink palm tree. That is so fun to me because it really does limit the perfect information player and just makes you say, got to send it, dude. Like, right. You just got to play tiles to play tiles. I love that aspect of it.
Absolutely, because it's not, I reference push your luck. It's not really a push your luck game, but we're all on any game where, like Wingspan or other ones where tiles are brought out or cards are brought out, you're going to have luck. It's the luck of what cards come out. It's the luck of what tiles come out. And you hit the nail on the head. You may never see, because there may be 2 or 3 of the perfect tile you want. You may never see them because they're literally at the bottom of the bag, and whatever the luck of those coming out, and you got to live with what comes out. I love that as well because I can easily accept the fact that mine never came out. Now, if everybody else's perfect tile comes out, it's a little tough. Oh, you got yours, you got yours, you guys. It's not like I'm not at Oprah's favorite things. You get a tile and you get a tile and you get a tile. You don't get a tile. I'm like, oh, I'm not with Oprah right now. Rarely does that happen where everybody's getting their great tiles, right? They'll hit it perfect sometimes, and you may hit it perfect as well. But like I said, as you said, I love that. Because I know I can still make something happen with it, ideally. Towards the end, you may just have, okay, I'm going to go for 3 yellow, so give me a button, or I'll go finish out my design tile, my design goal, so at least gives you my 7 points. That level of chance, the luck of the tiles that come out, and whether someone takes that or not, is definitely fun.
Yeah. So, production-wise, it's so good. I mean, I think my favorite part really is the player boards. I think the player boards are so nice. As someone who you get that like that dopamine hit of locking pieces into place, and as you play them, it all nestles into the board really nicely. And it's such a visually pleasing moment when you get to the end of the game and you have this full quilt laying in front of you, and you're going to get that every single time you play, which is really fun. The buttons are laying on top of it. And because you're trying to like do a sort of point salad build of like getting the right things in the right places, it also aesthetically looks even better because of the fact that you're like, I'm trying to get 3 pink pieces around this one side. So there's just this little splash of pink in the middle, and then there's some blue and then some purples. It's very, very fun. Jason, feel free to talk about production and cost.
You hit the nail on the head. It is so pleasing to finish that. And we've said it a couple of times. We can't overemphasize how fun it is your entire board is going to be complete. Cascadia is fun because your board may look different. You're all going to play similar tiles, but this one you're putting them in there almost like a puzzle. It's hard to say, hard to say for our YouTube viewers, but you can see every one of those white spots are going to be filled with a token or with a tile. And it looks great. And especially if you have the patterns together or the colors together, it's awesome. It's nice, sturdy tiles. Like the video won't quite show on YouTube, but like those are they really are chunky, thick tiles. Like, and we've played this game probably 20 or 30 times, and you really can't tell with how much we pulled these tiles out of the bag. It sounds silly, but quality bags are good. Like it comes with a bag that's very high quality. I'll tell you a quick story. There's a spaghetti stain on ours. The first time we bought this, we had just dropped off, I think, Hannah at college. I think it was Hannah or maybe it was Xander. It was me, Elizabeth, and Ryder had gone to the local game store that closed, and we bought this we bought Calico. I was like, I've been wanting to buy it. Played it in Pigeon Forge because it's in BG Stats, and we had like takeaway pasta or something, and I got spaghetti sauce on there. So I will always remember how I got spaghetti sauce on a little marinara on there. High quality bags. The art's great. I mean, it's not the greatest art ever, but it's cute art if you like the cats. The patterns are cool. The color's clear. Everything about the production is fantastic.
Yeah. And only $39 on Amazon right now. I definitely think it is something that it probably goes on sale a lot because it's a game that it's not the flashiest of games in terms of the gameplay. We've said it so many times. It's so simple. So you're not walking away with a Planet Unknown where you have this lazy Susan that you're spinning around. You don't have Fromage where you're spinning something. Like, the gameplay is very, very simple. The strategy super complicated, but the gameplay is simple. So $39 on Amazon when we're recording this. I mean, it's a great deal. I will say this just came to mind, Jason, and this is one of your favorite games right now. So I wonder if this is a stretch. You know what this board reminds me of? It reminds me of Castles of Burgundy.
Yep, for sure. It's very similar because Castles of Burgundy is a tile laying game with push your luck with die rolls to go select those. I've never really thought about that, but you're spot on.
It's like I feel like the designer. If you told me that who is it? Kevin Russ loves Castles of Burgundy and wanted a cat version of Castles of Burgundy in terms of like laying some tiles down.
Yeah.
Wouldn't be shocked. Wouldn't be shocked. So cookies. Jason, you want to go first or second on cookies?
I'll go first. We talked a few weeks ago about covering Calico. I was debating about it, and granted, I haven't played this. I think we played this last February, so I haven't played it since last February. I have a lot of games. I wish I could play more games. Well, actually, me and Liz, we played it in September. Well, that's interesting. We played it like a month ago, so that's good. But I love Calico. I love the crunchiness of it. I said earlier, I have 12 plays, and I've won 7 of them. There's games I love that I never win, and we've talked about them on this podcast many times, how there's games I absolutely love that I never win. Calico, I was going back and forth for sure. Here's what's interesting. I don't remember what I said was Cascadia, but if I had to rate them now, having talked about Calico's a double doozy, and Cascadia would be a chocolate chip. I can't remember if I gave Cascadia double doozy or chocolate chip, but it would easily trump that for me because of all the things we talked about in this podcast. So for me, it's definitely a double doozy.
Yeah. I'm a little lower on it. Now, granted, I don't have the history of the game with it.
Right.
And I mentioned contextually, I've not played it in 2 years.
Right. For sure.
So and the one time I did play it, I wasn't necessarily personally set up for success to love it. But I will say, in terms of, like Jason even mentioned, it has a lot of games. So because I don't have the history of it, I think Calico could come in, depending on when it comes into your life as a board gamer, it could be really good. Depending on what stage of life you're in your board gaming, it could be really good. If you are, hey, we don't have a lot of people to play with, we play a lot of 2-player games, I could see this locking in. Like, if we enjoy that crunchy aspect, it really shining for you. For me, it's going to land as a sugar cookie. And the reason it's landing as a sugar cookie is because right now, I'm a social gamer.
Yep.
Not that I have to play party games, but Jason nailed it. If I'm sitting down to play Calico, there's not a world that I'm like, hey, do you guys want to come over for a game night? We're going to play Calico. Because I just want to, like, if we did that, we would be playing party game, Calico, party game. Like, that would be the only way that I would include it in the game night, just because it is crunchy. You're dialing it in. Now, for some people, that is exactly what they're looking for in a game night. They want that feeling of like, it's a battle of wits at the table. Let's lock it in. Like, I can see a world that, like, Ryder comes home, y'all make dinner, you sit down, and then you, Elizabeth, and Ryder just bust out a game of Calico while you're eating dinner. Yeah. Like, we don't have to talk right now because we're eating dinner, but we might as well play a game.
Right.
And Calico is super easy to lock in because this has to be so, like, I would be very curious on Ryder's, like, thoughts on this game because there is that, like, there isn't perfect information.
Right. He's not a big fan, but he's never played it particularly well either. And so that kind of goes with youth and someone like him. He doesn't like, historically, he hasn't liked it as much. He's played it 4 or 5 times and he hasn't liked it as much because of that, because you're dealing with chance a lot. You're dealing with a little bit of luck on the tiles that come out, as opposed to, because you could, in the end, while this is a good game for so many people, you could be like, I'm going to play smarter than you, but you can only play the tiles you get. And no matter how well you play them, if the good ones don't come out next, or someone takes the tile you wanted because they maybe hate draft, we didn't talk about this at all, but you could take a tile that maybe is not great for you, but it's great for the other people, and now, okay, I'm going to use it because I give me my blue, my third button, but I took it away from you because that was your pattern, your cat, and your color all together. That's definitely a part of this game, without doubt.
Yeah.
We say it's not a social game, but if you don't pay attention to who's to your left, there's a chance you're feeding them stuff left and right, like Seven Wonders in the science tiles. If you're not paying attention to what they're going for on your left and you're trying to win, you have to do that. If you're just playing to play for fun, don't worry about anything else. Most of my games today are that way. But if I'm really trying to win, I'm hardcore looking at the person who's to my left, because you always go. I say to your left because you're always going to take a tile before the person to your left. So you can only directly affect the person who's directly to your left. 2-player game is the other player, right? So if you don't pay attention, then you can just be letting them blow you away because you're not paying attention to what they're doing.
Yeah. Oh, totally. And I've already built this reputation at our local Arcana League that people are like, oh, if I'm looking to have a good time, I sit next to Robbie at the table because I do my turn. I lock in. I'm like, bang, 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 play my cards. Cool. And you can't interact like on the opponent's turn. Like I can't like play counter spells or something to block them from doing it, which is one of the best parts of Lorcana.
Yep.
So I will straight up like sit with my friends and like they're playing like they're done with their turn. I'm done with my turn. And so we just talk like while the other people are going. And so that is social gaming to me, and I know it's a weakness in some people's eyes. It's a strength in others. But I think Calico is a really great game, and I think that if you are newer into the gaming world and you haven't found a game that you feel like stretches you thinking wise, like lighter strategy is all you've kind of played, like a Catan or a Ticket to Ride, or like if you're on the base level and you want to dip your toes into something that's really crunchy, Calico is the perfect game for you because mechanically it's not intense, but the strategy is really what takes this to an entirely different level. Like you're going to walk away with a Calico win. Never had one, but I would imagine every win of Calico, you are just completely like, you're so satisfied on the other side because you're like, whew. It feels like walking away from a great workout.
Yep. For sure. And you hit the nail on the head. Your level, that next level, when you're ready for that next level of crunchiness, this can be the game. Because I will repeat what I've said. You play a tile and you draw a tile. The entire game. Even in so many other games, you got to think about, okay, I got to get money to buy this. Or even Cascadia, you're drawing a tile, and the animal token. So it's one more level of thing you have to think about. Cascadia, it's crunchy because you're trying to make sure you puzzle it out. But the gameplay is so benign, so nothing. You don't even have to think about, I'm playing a tile. And so that you don't have to worry about the mechanics, and to let you start thinking about that deeper level of strategy.
Yeah. So that's going to wrap it up for Calico. Jason, any final thoughts as we close it out for the week?
No worries, man. I had a good time, and we may see you again in 2 weeks, or it may be a month and a half. We'll see. So
we'll see. Yeah, no, we're excited. Definitely looking forward to, we do have to figure out, we're on episode 33. So we got to figure out who we're bringing in for 35.
Yeah. We'll have to figure that out after, not today, but another time for sure.
Yeah, well, that would be crazy.
Yeah, we also remember that when
special guest, and then
special guest, and you may not be there for it, so we'll see. And so maybe the special guest will be within the disc golf community who I work with. I don't know, so we'll figure it out. But we'll definitely have a guest for 35, even if it's somebody we can pull some strings for. We can't be remiss about this. The day this episode drops is Thanksgiving for our American folks who celebrate Thanksgiving. Happy Thanksgiving. Hope your favorite football team is winning, or you got your favorite food today, or whatever. Don't go crazy on Black Friday, but there's lots of board games for sale. I've already bought a couple. It is what it is.
Yeah. I have been into Target multiple times, and I think I can't go into another Target before this is over, because I mean, the board game wall, Jason, I'm walking over to the hobby game section, and every single time there has just been a wall of people there.
I believe it.
Definitely some deals happening. Let us know in the comments, what games are you snagging on Black Friday deals, and all of that. So thank you so much for listening. Hope you have a great rest of your day, and we will see you guys. Jason will see you for sure. Hopefully I see you too in episode 34. Catch y'all later.
See ya.